Okay. So I guess we can start with the first question. What school-wide issues contribute to the breakdown in study hall? And I think the first problem that I notice is that there is a 60 students to 1 teacher ratio, which I don't think ever happens in any school, like normal classroom for learning. So I don't know why it should happen for a study hall.
Especially because it's students that she doesn't know. Like, it's one thing if you have your study hall with like a lot of kids, but as long as the teacher knows who they are and they can like be like, hey, you sit down. But if like she can't even call out the child's name and address them that way, and there's no like time to get to know the kids, that's gonna lead to further issues.
Yeah, definitely like the ratio is jaded, and I think in like a lot of schools maybe like that might happen where like they don't have the resources to have like an extra body in the classroom, an extra adult. But I think it would have been way more helpful for this like teacher if she would have known the kids. I mean, we're doing reading hall at Brooklyn Prospect, and on one day I have 7th grade and I don't teach 7th grade, so there's just very little I could do to like build a relationship with them because they're supposed to be quiet the whole time. They're supposed to be in their books, like not saying a word. So it's like really tough to even build that relationship. So I can imagine I'm in a room with 30 kids and with 2 extra teachers. I can imagine how hard it must be with 60 kids in study hall where they're allowed to talk and, you know, where it's supposed to be like a free space basically. So yeah. I think that the ratio was like a really big problem. Plus like having her in a classroom again with like students that aren't her normal students during the day.
Yeah. Something else I think also is that the students are there before she is, right? Like she walks in and she finds 2 students that are in a fight. And I think like at my school generally, like the teacher or the tutors always should show up first. And what a lot of teachers do is they just have the students line up and like before they go inside and they greet them or whatever their like usual routine is for entering the classroom. But there's no routine for this. The kids are just there and then she walks in. So it's like
she's walking into chaos and like setting herself up for failure basically.
Yeah. And I don't think it's her fault. That seems definitely like a school-wide thing, like a school issue, not necessarily like a Miss Mitchell issue. If they don't give her enough time to get to the classroom before her students do.
And also the fact that the principal who's like observing her just walks in and yells at her in front of all the students. I think that was like really troublesome. Like you're like I don't know, I feel like that makes the students even further just like separates her even further from the students just because they just saw her be yelled at. Like there was an exclamation on what he said to her.
And he didn't give her any help either.
Yeah.
He like just said, Miss Mitchell, fix this, and didn't say how, like didn't try to get control of the students, just told her this needs to stop. And it didn't seem like she was given much training in how to begin her study hall or even do any of her duties that she's required to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at my school, if any staff member was struggling with a group of students and it was like a classroom management issue and like the principal or like anyone from the leadership team walked by, they would definitely step in and help, not say, you need to fix this. Like of course, Mr. Vance would like come into the classroom and like help, you know, redirect the students and like figure out what you need to do or do like a whole class reset. Like, of course that's what would happen. Not like going in, fix this and then leaving.
And reprimanding a teacher in front of the students is just like, well, why should we respect them if you don't even respect them? You're their boss.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
I feel like he could have just like observed her for like 10 seconds and then like done things like call out on the students who were doing the right thing and like acknowledging that they were doing the right things, just to even like demonstrate to her like these are the types of things you can do in
Mhm.
order to like ensure that they're all trying to at least keep a space where there's a set tone, I don't know, like a volume. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Or just like a whole group reset. Like, so like if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me,
Hmm.
clap twice until everyone is silent, and then just like give them instructions on what they need to be doing. They need to be silent in a seat and like tracking the speaker, whatever like systems they have in the school.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what is she doing well, and what does she do or not do to contribute to the breakdown in study hall?
Mhm.
I would say she gets her work done, which is good. That's something she does well. Also, it says that she appreciates the 15 students who take their seats and begin to do their work. So,
Mhm.
not sure how she's appreciating them, but like maybe giving them some kind of positive praise in front of their peers, like board would be a good way to appreciate them well. I'm not sure how she's doing it, but maybe she's doing that well. Um, Not doing so well is like she just kind of gives up and like implodes, and
Mhm.
that is a terrible way to act around students who are acting up. But we've all been there.
Yeah. I think that the fact that it states that she is trying to avoid confrontation is really helpful. I know it's like obvious, but like
Mhm.
I've actually like seen teachers try to argue with a student, and it's just like how far can that really get you unless the child is in a situation where they're like debating you on a topic that has something to do with the content of the class, like then that's like I feel like that would be a good situation to kind of like debate and confront a student where you're kind of like making them critically think or exercise that muscle. But to just confront them over behavior issues is just really, to me, like it gets you nowhere. It gets neither of you nowhere anywhere. Yesterday I actually had to like reprimand my first student. um we were, yeah, it was like my first time like taking that on, and he's one of the students who gets the most conduct cuts in the middle school, and apparently this year he's okay.
Mm.
But my mentor teacher called him over, and before he went over to him, he said like 7 F words, said he was a something something, and while he's doing this he's looking straight in my eyes, like he's meeting my gaze, and I'm just like, why would you do that? So I just like I continued like grading papers, um, and at the end of advisory I told him to come outside, and I'm just like, why did you do that? Like, why did you curse out Mr. Baird, basically? And he's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And I'm like, Adonis, you were looking right at me as you did it. And he kept saying, no, I didn't. And I'm just like, listen, this is not about whether or not you cursed him out. I am sure you cursed him out. I saw you, and you know I saw you. And I don't respect that you're lying to me right now. And the minute I said that, like, he was just like, I'm sorry, Miss Avila, you're right. I did do it, and it won't happen again. Like, he's like, I was just frustrated that he was calling me over during advisory. Like, I wanted to be with my friends. And I'm just like, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And like he's just like, today he was so loving to me. It's just like it's like not worth it to confront students, I think, in that way.
Mm. I kind of understood her like confrontation thing as like she didn't want to have to like actually like set an expectation for a student, um, because she says like, can you please sit down and do some work? Like, I don't know, those aren't very like clear instructions. Um, like, please sit down and do some work. I don't know. I mean, sorry, the instructions are clear, but when you're setting an expectation, you're not supposed to like ask students to please do something. Like, say, this is what you need to be doing. Get started. And I don't know, because she doesn't know the student, she just seems like very not confident. And it seems like the students probably don't see her as like a person with authority, because she keeps asking them to please do what they're supposed to be doing.
And I think there is a place to say the word please, and like to ask politely to your student. I don't think in this case that is the time or place to do that, because she has absolutely no control over this room, and that's not the time to be like, please sit down. Like, please sit your butt down. Like, it's time to just be like, no, this is the expectation. If you're not following it, there will be a consequence if you continue to not follow it.
Yeah.
But what else do you think she's doing well in the room? Anything?
Well, she's not doing much. And I don't know if this is even the place for her to do any work.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like study hall is for the kids, like it's not for her. And I think because she's supposed to be there monitoring them, like she's supposed to be circling the room. If students have questions, answering those questions, you know, like allowing kids to go to the bathroom who need to go to the bathroom. I think there's like a lot more that she needs to be doing in managing a classroom, even though like there's no like direct instruction time. It's just like homework time. She still needs to be busy and like circling and checking in on students, I think.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to find something that like stands out to me that she did well. I mean, it says that she walks around, but it's just to ask that student if they can please sit down, and it's like, okay, that does nothing for you really.
Also, she seems to give up like halfway through. Like, she's like, sit down and do some work. And it says that it temporarily works because some students sit down, but they're not doing any work. So she's like, oh, well, at least I got them to sit down. So I'm not even going to bother with the work thing, which is not the point to give up. Like, you got somewhere with the student. Like, you can keep going and take it the next step further and get them to actually do what they're supposed to be doing. Because they're meeting one expectation out of two, so like they're halfway there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is a place for her to be doing her grade book stuff, especially if like students were to come over to her and they can like see that work out in front of her. Like, that's not appropriate, because that's also like other students' business that shouldn't be out in the open for everyone else.
Yeah, the fact that she has been showing up for 3 weeks is like the only thing I can say that.
Yeah, she's still there.
Good for her. Good for her.
That is, yeah, she is still there. She's trying.
Yeah, she is.
I think that her actions communicate to students that like study hall isn't an academic place. That it isn't a place where like things need to get done, that there's no urgency in them being there, and that it's just like a time filler, which I don't know, it really shouldn't be. Like, it should be like a valuable time for them to like get work done, or, you know, move ahead in what they need to move ahead in, and like learn to plan their time. I think study hall can be like a really useful tool for helping kids learn how to manage their work and time and like be responsible. But this kind of study hall is just like a free-for-all break. Yeah, I think that's what the students are getting from her.
Yeah, the fact that she keeps like looking at the clock and just waiting for the 60-minute period to be over, it's just like, that just sends a message to the students, like she doesn't want to be here as much as we do. And I don't know, like, I think the fact that she like lets them sit on desks and like doesn't even ask them to, you know, sit on a chair, That, I mean, that's fine for study hall if they were actually doing something productive and trying to maintain some sort of order. But it seems like she just really doesn't care, honestly.
Also, the fact that she's sitting in the like far corner of the room is like, really? That is the worst seat to choose if you want to like actively monitor these students. Like, first of all, you should be walking around and making sure that they're like following expectations. But if you are going to choose a seat, at least sit in the middle where you can like see everyone, or like
Exactly.
sit at a desk that's higher up that you can see everyone. Like if it's in a library or something, sit at the higher up circulation desk. I don't know what this room looks like, but there's got to be a better place to sit than the very far back corner.
For sure.
What do you guys think? Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just wondering about the families bit. I don't know if she's necessarily communicating something about herself to families, because like, I don't know, if I were a student in study hall, I probably wouldn't even mention my study hall teacher. I might mention that I had study hall, and that it was like a big waste of time, or like it's just like a good place to hang out, or like it's just too loud and noisy. And so I suppose families are getting the impression that the study hall isn't really for studying.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if like one of those students that does share information it'll, or like a student who like shows their parent their homework or something. I'm guessing study hall is like for homework. The parent will just probably be like, well, she's not even like trying to help us. Like, I'm thinking like this is like an urban school and like a place where like, you know, probably with like a lot of students with like who are economically disadvantaged. So I'm guessing their situations are at home is just like parents can't really help them with homework. So I feel like she's communicating like, this is like your problem, like deal with it when you get home, when you have some time at home. And it's just like, so I'm really not working with you as a teacher. If your child isn't even at least getting half of the homework done in a 60-minute window.
Also, it's saying like, it says in the beginning, she's handed her textbook, the teacher's manual for the textbook that she's using for the year, and a key. And that was like all the principal did to help her at the beginning of this year. And was like, oh, and here's your schedule. Have fun.
Yeah.
It's just like a terrible way to set up a new teacher or any person that's new to a school, because like you're not giving them the norms of the school or the expectations or general rules or like what they want the students to achieve. It's just like, here you go, have fun.
Yeah.
But like you were saying with the families, like I think we had a student come in during professional development, which this school should implicate because Miss Mitchell is all by herself. But we had a student come in during professional development, and they were like, you knew which tutors you could get away with stuff with, right? And she was like, yeah, do you want me to name them? And they're like, no, please don't. But like, you knew. And I think these students could easily identify that they can get away with stuff in Ms. Mitchell's classroom. So she is not setting herself up for a fun time for the rest of the year. It's only week 3.
I think there's a couple of things she needs to do differently. Like if I were in this situation, I would probably start with, like asking for help, right? Like trying to see if I can get another adult in the room. That would be extremely helpful. And just like it just makes sense, right? You have 60 kids, having at least 3 adults would be the best way to manage that study hall. But if you can't get any adults, or like even if you do get adults, having like a whole like restart, like setting norms and like actually having procedures for study hall. So whether that be like having students line up outside the door, or like assigning them seats, or like whatever routines, and like figuring out how do you ask to go to the bathroom, when are you allowed to talk, what do you do if you have questions or if you don't understand something, like actually having those procedures and routines and like communicating that to students and having just like a whole restart. Like, let's start from the beginning. Let's figure out how we're going to do this year. And let's see how we can be most productive with our time.
Also, a simple suggestion that I have for her is just like try to learn as many students' names as you can, especially the students that are doing well and the students that are doing poorly, because those are the students that you need to communicate their names immediately with. That way you can be like, this student is doing really well, and so I want to give a shout out to that person for what they're doing, and then this person is not following expectations, so I'm going to go to them and say what expectation they're not following and be like, hey, like tap their desk and talk to them like in a private way, so that way you're not embarrassing them in front of all 60 kids,
Right.
but saying like, this is not acceptable right now.
I think even just trying to just, even if she was doing her work, just sitting next to a child and like, you know, at least pretending to like at this point, because it seems like she doesn't even care, at least like pretending to want to build a relationship with at least one of them. Or at least, you're right about the learning the names things, because I think what we all realize, like how far that takes us, just learning their names. It like, it like, I don't know, it kind of like humanizes them. Like it feels like they think it humanizes them for us. Just being able to say, hi, Becky, or hello, Bill. Like, it's just like really strange how just like learning their names, how much that means to them and to us in general as just people. And yeah, I think just like, just sitting with them, like showing some sort of desire to like get to know them, because I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like this is like going to be a routine that even if, you know, she is short staffed, like she's gonna be with them all year long.
Yeah. One of our assignments this week is to interview teachers about like classroom management stuff, and something that the teacher that I interviewed today said was that like classroom management, like the essence of it was like planning ahead. Like the essence of it was like looking at things that could possibly go wrong, or ways that like students could disrupt their own or another student's learning, and like doing your absolute best to make sure that doesn't happen before they get the opportunity to let it happen. And so especially in this scenario, like there's so many opportunities for like the disruption of somebody's learning or work time. And so kind of thinking about like, all right, what can I do to prevent anyone's like work or workflow or just like concentration being disrupted? How can I prevent that? And like sitting down and making a plan for that, I think would have been the best thing to do from the start. Like, I'm going to have 60 kids in a room. How am I going to make sure that everyone can use this time productively?
I would also say, like the quotes that are, or paraphrases, I'm not sure which ones they are, at the end of the article or case study are important. Just like if Miss Mitchell were to read those, I think she would be like, oh, maybe I should engage with my students and demonstrate by my own actions how they should be acting and behaving. Or like if I have a good relationship with their parents, then maybe they'd be a little more open to like having a relationship with me. Or if I try to go out into the community and learn more about the community that I'm working in, like maybe I'll have a better chance of understanding where these kids are coming from and what their norms are and those sort of things. So she could be doing more, but I feel like at this point she's just exhausted, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So I feel like she doesn't have the drive right now to do what she needs to do, but she definitely needs to like have a eureka moment and just like snap back into first day of school, like need to start from day one with these students.
I was even thinking like having like a sign, like just like observing what student holds some sort of like power in the classroom structure and like
Mm.
assigning them a role. Like if you're really at that point where you can't do anything, use your students as like your tools, which I did that my first year where I was alone with like 31 students. I used to use a lot of them for just like little things, like resetting the classroom. Like they would know like, hey, this is the person that does that. Or handing out papers or anything, just assigning roles if you're really at the point where you can't be that person.
Mhm.
We used to do that at camp a lot too. We would like give the leadership talk to students that were like acting out, but getting other kids to act out too. And we'd be like, we need you to help us. We need you to be our junior counselor for the week. And like, this is a big responsibility. And obviously we would make it older if we needed to for the older kids, but like, we need you to show the other kids how it's done. And when we walk somewhere, you need to be in the front. And when we clean up the cabin, you need to be the one that's like organizing who's doing what task. And it would get like some of the bad kids to like snap into this like amazing role of like, I'm leading this cabin, I'm a junior counselor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We would call them like Miss, whatever their first name was, because we all went by Miss and then our first name.
Mhm.
So they would like feel happy that they got that little title in front of their name, even though like that's the title they had before their names anyway. We're just using it now, and they were like so proud of themselves. And it was like you would see such a turn in these kids just because
Mhm.
we were willing to invest in them.
Right.
Yeah, something I started doing this past week with a student I have. So we also have like a goal setting class, and I have a group of students, and one of them, he is not allowed to sit in his like former seat because like it is just a disaster zone when he's there. So I moved him, and he was just not enthused about it. Like just like fear. He's like this kid who always has like a pout on his face when he's just not it. Like when someone calls him out on something or when he's like doesn't get what he wants, he's sitting there with this big pout on his face, doesn't want to do anything. And I'm like, listen, Jaden, like the reason I asked you to move here was because I really need you to do me this favor. You're sitting next to Peter now, and like Peter, you know, like he struggles to stay on task, and like he thinks you're super cool, and like when he's next to you, he's actually like even better. And he's like, really? It's like, yeah, like you're such a leader for Peter. Like Peter looks up to you so much. So I think that if you help Peter stay on task, like our whole group could be amazing. Like, do you think you could do this special job for me? And like Peter had no idea that this was happening. Nobody else at the table knew, but only like this one kid knew. And because he felt like really special, even though nobody else knew, like he himself felt like a really special person who had this special job that was like kind of a secret from everyone else. And even that element was like, oh my gosh, like this is great. And so he was like super on task. He was like redirecting not just Peter, but like the other people in our group. Being like, no, come on guys, like we need to copy this down. Or, like we got to think about the next thing we need to do. And it's really incredible how that can work. And so even having like a system of accountability for students can be super helpful.
Yeah, I think I need to start doing more partner work with my tutees. So that way they like just to like check in every day where they're like, hey, what's going on? You know, like why you had this issue yesterday, and just like get them to talk to each other and like have like a peer accountability system with them would be pretty cool. Especially because I have one group where I have two students that have 106 and 107 merit points, and the other girl has 68. And she's trying really hard, but I think she needs to like model herself after the other two that have so many merit points, because every week they start off with 100 and they either get added or subtracted based off of how their behavior is.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other students are clearly doing things out of their way to like get the attention of teachers and show them they're staying on task. And this other student is not, and she's showing teachers that she doesn't want to be on task. And so like just using them to talk to each other and be like, this is how I got that merit point, or this is how I got positive praise would be a good way to like have them hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And students listen to their peers a
Mhm.
lot more than we would think, sometimes even more than they listen to us.
I would say definitely more than they listen to us. Like your peer is running in the hall and you hear someone say like, please don't run in the hall. They're still going to run because their peer is like, no, come on.
Yeah.
They don't care if they get demerits for that because they're doing what's cool according to their friend. And friendship is kind of a bigger deal than discipline issues and consequences when you're in middle school.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any final thoughts? We're like at 30 minutes now. I've been recording.
Mm.
Lorraine, what about you? Lorraine, you're muted right now, just in case you didn't hear that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely second that. Like the fact that students like listen to one another better, and I think for a lot of students who are like you said, like having some sort of like behavior problem, when you give them some sort of responsibility, it goes a really long way.
Mm.
And I don't know, I feel like she could have assigned even like four, like split them up into like 4 groups depending on what they're studying, and assign one leader in each group.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm definitely gonna use that like for future references, especially when we go into like the research portion of this. I feel like there are a lot of like students I want to hear from, but it's very easy for them to get into these sort of holes, and it would be good to have like a person where instead of you coming in and trying to like handle the situation, where a student will just pull them out of that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'm going to stop recording and we can
Okay.
continue talking if we want to.